Well, more Canadian officials will soon be on their way to Iran. This morning on Twitter, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister said Iranian officials have issued 8 more visas. Canada has been adamant it wants to take part in the investigation of the downed plane. 3 Canadian officials have already arrived in Iran. They are in the process of setting up a base of operations for the full team. We are also hearing from Iranian lawmakers today. They are offering their condolences to the families of the victims and vowed to investigate and prosecute those responsible for the tragedy. They say there was no attempt to cover up the missile strike that downed Flight 752. 176 people were killed, among them 57 Canadians. Well, staying in Iran right now, riot police are scattered around the capital city of Tehran this hour, and this is an effort to counter a second day of anti-government protests. Iranians have taken to the streets to demand action in the wave of the downing of the Ukrainian Airlines flight. And for the latest, let's bring in Natasha Fatah. And I say the latest because we've been tracking this yesterday and certainly once again today, these protesters in the streets.
That's right. And so much of the story that we're getting, Michael, because we can't get in on the ground, is through social media, through some of the images that are coming out. And we want to show you an image that's circulating quite a bit. It's a short video of student protesters ripping down the posters of Qasem Soleimani, who is, of course, the top general who was just killed just over a week ago. So you see the students ripping down those posters. So think of the symbolic power of that gesture, because the regime, the government, those in positions of power are rallying around Qasem Soleimani, saying that if there's going to be any mourning, it's going to be for that man. And you've got young student protesters, like hundreds on the streets like that, saying, no, it's not Soleimani that we are grieving. It is, in fact, the 176 people on board that flight that were shot down by an Iranian missile, and saying that the Iranian government lied about it for 3 days, not willing to admit what they knew from day one, which was that they brought that plane down. So these are unverified images circulating on social media. Some are being broadcast. There's a BBC reporter who's circulating a video that seems to show people on a bridge on a street being shot out by the police and by security forces. It's disturbing. You hear people screaming, and it just gives you a sense of the tension and intensity that's taking place in the country right now, Michael. And then add to all of this that we are seeing reports that 2 top journalists, TV broadcasters in the country have resigned from their positions because they say they were forced to lie to the public about what happened when that plane went down. So just on ethical grounds, they're stepping down. A Tehran politician says she's stepping down from city council because she says reform is just not happening at the pace that she needs it. So you get that sense of rising tension, certainly in the streets, but also in corporate offices as well.
Okay, Natasha, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, now, as these protests flare up in Iran, that country's political tensions with the U.S. remain unresolved. And for more on this, we did speak to Stephanie Carvin earlier today. She is an assistant professor at Carleton University and its Norman Paterson School of International Affairs. She is also a former national security analyst. And earlier, she explained why she thinks Iran will continue retaliating against the U.S.
Looking past the tragedy that occurred with the downing of the plane, if there's an extremely small silver lining to what happened, it's that, with regard to the missile strike on the base that was hosting U.S. troops, there does seem to be willingness for de-escalation. The Iranians made a statement after they had fired the missiles, which basically said, okay, we've made our point. I expect they'll be still responding in more, say, clandestine ways, but, publicly they're saying they have made their point. The United States seems to have taken a similar line. I mean, Trump issued a fairly bizarre tweet in the immediate aftermath of these strikes saying all is well and so far so good. So I don't think anyone has an interest in a major war in the Middle East at this time. Certainly the Saudis don't, the Israelis don't. And even I think Trump's instincts, even though they tend to be, they can change on a dime, I don't think he's someone who's interested in a war in the Middle East. And the Iranian regime knows it would lose a major war because its military is so out of date. So we should take some comfort in that at this time. But as we've seen, this is a region of the world that can actually, become extremely unstable at a very short period of time. And that's something that I think Canada should be worried about. Certainly the Europeans are worried about. And I think, even though the Iranians have basically said that they're finished their retaliation, I strongly expect that they have large networks of proxy proxy militias and things like this who may still continue to engage, and almost certainly actually will continue to engage against Western interests in the region, which once again could spiral out of control.
And our thanks to Stephanie Carvin, who is with Carleton University and its Norman Paterson School of International Affairs.